moved back home on a Tuesday, late summer, the kind where the air smells like sun-heated concrete and someone's sprinkler ticking across dead grass. Mom wasn't home, just a note on the fridge. She always wrote in cursive, "Welcome home, sweet girl. We'll talk after work. Kevin's upstairs." Kevin. I stood in the middle of the kitchen for a long time, just staring at those 3 words. He's upstairs. The last time I saw him, he was 17, still half boy, soft around the eyes, wearing headphones bigger than his head, always humming something I didn't know. He's 18 now. He's taller, Mom said, quieter too. So am I. I carried my bag upstairs. The house creaked the same way it always had, like it remembered me. Kevin's door was mostly closed. A thin line of light poured out underneath. I paused, then knocked twice. No answer. "Kev," I said gently, "I'm home." The music inside stopped. Lo-fi something. Beats and rain sounds. A pause, then his voice deeper than I remembered. "Come in." I pushed the door open. He was on the bed, cross-legged, hoodie on, eyes dark, looking older and smaller at the same time. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then he nodded. "Hey," I said. He gave a little shrug. "Hey." I walked in slowly, careful not to move too fast, like he might vanish. The room had changed. Cleaner, more books, soft yellow light from the desk lamp, the smell of something, incense maybe, sharp and sweet. On the wall above his bed, a small postcard taped with washi tape. It read, "Be gentle with yourself. You're doing the best you can." I sat in the desk chair. He didn't move. "You look older," I said. "So do you," he replied. His voice had a scratch to it, not from sickness, from holding things in. I watched him tug at the sleeve of his hoodie, thumb circling a worn-out thread. That little motion made my chest ache. He'd done that since he was 10, when Dad left, when I left, when things felt too big. "I missed you," I said. Kevin didn't answer, just looked down at his hands. After a long minute, he whispered, "You left really fast." I nodded. "I know." Silence again, heavy, not angry, just full. I followed his gaze to the corner of the room, books stacked neatly, a few graphic novels, a red journal tucked half out of a drawer, just a glimpse of paper sticking out, like something left unsaid. He caught me looking, moved his leg slightly, blocking the drawer, too fast. I looked away, pretended not to notice. That night I couldn't sleep. The bed felt wrong, too soft, too still. I wandered the hallway barefoot, past his door again. It was cracked open now, light off, but I could hear his breathing, slow, steady. That red journal was still there, half visible, tugging at something in me. I didn't open it, not then, but I stood in the doorway longer than I meant to, listening to the rhythm of his breath, wondering who he was now, who I was, and why the silence between us felt so loud. In the morning, I found him in the kitchen, back to me, wearing that same hoodie. He was slicing strawberries. "Still eat cereal with fruit?" I asked. He didn't turn. "Still drink coffee black and lie about liking it?" I smiled. "Touché." We ate together, not much talking, but something easier now, not quite peace, just less tension. I looked at his hands. Fingers longer, knuckles sharp, still chewing his thumbnail between bites. "I'm glad you're home," he said suddenly. I looked up. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, out the window, at nothing. I wanted to say me too, but the words caught, so I just nodded. That afternoon he was out, said he needed air. I stayed behind, folded laundry, cleaned out the fridge, pretended I wasn't thinking about that red journal. But when I passed his room again, I stopped. The drawer was open wider now, just a little. The journal sat on top, bright red, deliberate, like he'd left it there on purpose, or like he wanted me to think he had. My heart was too loud in my chest. I stepped inside, lifted the cover, didn't read much, just the first line. "I feel like a ghost inside my own skin." I closed it gently, put it back, then sat on his bed for a long time, staring at the wall. That night it rained. Summer storm, the kind that smells electric. I found Kevin on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, barefoot. The wind curled through his hair, His face looked carved out of shadow. "You'll catch a cold," I said. "I like the rain." I sat next to him, close but not touching. The swing creaked beneath us. He looked straight ahead, then asked almost too softly, "Do you think people can know what they are but not want it?" I turned to him. His profile was quiet, still. "I think people are allowed to be unsure," I said. He nodded, then looked at me, and in his eyes something shimmered. Not sadness, not confusion, something else, something wordless, and I felt it, low in my stomach, like a pull, like a memory of something that hadn't happened yet. Neither of us spoke after that. We just sat there, listening to the rain and pretending not to feel the storm inside. The next morning, he wasn't in the kitchen. His bowl sat in the sink, spoon still wet, half a strawberry floating in warm milk. I stared at it too long, like it might explain something. Mom was gone early again, left another note. "Don't wait for me for dinner. Love you both." I read it twice, not for the words, just the curve of her writing. Something certain in it, like she still believed this house could be normal. Kevin came back around noon, sweaty, flushed, his shirt stuck to his back, hair messy. He mumbled something about going for a run, then headed straight upstairs. I waited. 10 minutes, maybe 15, then climbed the stairs after him. His door was closed again, but not locked. I knocked once. "Kev?" No answer. "Can I come in?" Still no answer, but I opened the door anyway. He was lying on the bed, one arm over his eyes, shirt off, still catching his breath. I stood there frozen, not because he looked strange, but because he looked real, like someone you see in a dream, and then wake up wondering if you made them up. His ribs moved gently under his skin, each breath like a small apology. "Do you ever feel like you don't know what's yours?" he asked. His voice was quiet, not aimed at me, more like he was talking into the ceiling. Like you want something, but it doesn't belong to you. Not really. I stepped inside, sat in the desk chair again, same as the first day. "Yeah," I said. He didn't move. "But I think sometimes," I added, "what we want does belong to us. We're just afraid to ask for it." He lowered his arm, met my eyes. His gaze was strange, not intense, not soft either, just searching, like he was trying to read something behind my face. Later that day, I cleaned my old room. The closet still had old notebooks, doodles, high school essays, and one photo of Kevin, maybe age 12. He was wearing a red beanie, grinning, gap-toothed, holding a snowball like it was a crown. I stared at it for a long time, then slid it into my drawer. That night, we watched a movie together, one of those quiet foreign ones. Two friends biking through the countryside, lots of lingering shots, not much dialogue. Halfway through, the boys touched shoulders. Not much, just enough to mean everything. I didn't look at Kevin, but I felt him shift beside me, not away, closer. The distance between our legs became nothing, thighs just barely brushing. Neither of us moved. I held my breath. So did he. When the movie ended, neither of us spoke. The screen went black, reflected both our faces, two silhouettes, both waiting for someone to say something first. Before bed, I passed his room again. His lamp was still on, door cracked just slightly, like an invitation or a warning. I hovered, then turned away. Back to my own room, back to my own bed. But I didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling, heart loud, too loud, like it was trying to say something I wasn't ready to hear. In the middle of the night, I woke to the sound of footsteps, soft, almost hesitant. Then a knock. My door opened slowly. Kevin stood there, backlit by the hallway light, blanket wrapped around him, hair messy. He didn't speak. I didn't either, but I pulled back the blanket on the other side of my bed, and he walked in. We lay there, back to back, not touching, not speaking, just breathing, in sync, like two halves of the same unsaid thing. The room felt thick, like something was unfolding beneath the silence. And when I finally drifted off, I dreamed of waves, soft, slow, pulling and pulling, but never crashing. I woke before him. The sun was just starting to spill into the room, pale gold across the bedsheets, soft enough to pretend the night before hadn't happened. Kevin was on his side, facing away, his shoulder rising and falling, steady. Blanket tangled around his legs. I watched him for a moment. His mouth was slightly open, his lashes caught the light, and in that stillness, he looked younger than 18, or maybe just more true. I turned onto my back, stared at the ceiling, the same ceiling I used to trace with my eyes when I couldn't sleep as a kid. It hadn't changed, but I had. He had. We had. When he stirred, it was slow. He blinked a few times, sat up halfway, ran a hand through his hair, then looked at me, sleep-heavy, blank. "Morning," I said. He just nodded, didn't smile, didn't speak, but he didn't leave. We sat there, both upright in my bed, blanket draped over our legs, the kind of quiet that knows things. He looked down at his hands, then out the window, then at me. His voice was hoarse when it came, like it didn't want to be heard. "Do you think something can feel right, even if you don't understand it?" I swallowed. My mouth felt dry. "Yes," I said. "Sometimes that's how you know it's real." He left the room not long after. Didn't say much. The air stayed behind, warm, heavy, tangled. That afternoon, we drove to the grocery store. We needed milk and silence. The car ride was quiet, but not empty. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own pulse. He drove, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near the gear shift. I looked at his hand, thin fingers, short nails, that same little scar on his wrist from when we were kids and he fell off his bike. I remembered holding his arm back then, pressing a tissue to the blood, telling him not to cry. He didn't. He never did. At the store, he stayed close. Our shoulders bumped once in the cereal aisle. Neither of us moved away. When we reached for the same box, his hand grazed mine. Just a brush, but it felt electric. He pulled back fast, too fast, and then avoided my eyes for the rest of the trip. That night we didn't watch anything, just sat in the living room, me curled up on the end of the couch, Kevin stretched out, feet bare, hoodie sleeves covering his hands. He was reading something, a poetry book maybe, he didn't say. The room smelled like the rain again, soft and quiet. "I used to think I was broken," he said suddenly. I looked up. He wasn't looking at me, just turning a page, slow, precise. I thought if I could just pick the right box, things would stop hurting. Girl, boy, straight. Something. Anything. He paused, then closed the book. But none of them felt like me. I waited, felt my fingers curl around the edge of the cushion. "And now?" I asked. He shrugged, still not looking. "Now I think maybe I'm just floating." That word hung in the air, floating. I shifted closer, just a little. An inch, maybe 2. He noticed, of course he did, but he didn't move away. At some point he looked at me, really looked. Not quick glances, not accidental brushes. His eyes were steady, dark, shining in the low light. There was a question in them. I felt it before he asked. "Why did you come back?" he whispered. I held his gaze, then said the truth. I didn't know where else to go. He leaned forward, not fast, not dramatic, just forward. Our knees touched, then our hands, then silence again. Our fingers didn't intertwine, they just rested, barely overlapping. But that was enough to make everything tilt. The moment swelled and didn't break. He looked down, then up. His voice was smaller now. "Is this wrong?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I don't know. I wanted to say don't stop. Instead, I just whispered, "It's not simple." He nodded. His thumb brushed mine, just once. Then we both pulled our hands back, like we'd touched something hot. He went to bed early that night. No word. Just vanished up the stairs. I sat on the couch staring at my empty palm. Still warm, still tingling. The TV buzzed softly. I didn't turn it off. Outside, the wind started to howl, and I realized we'd passed some kind of line. Not loud, not dramatic, not even visible, but real and quiet and impossible to come back from. We didn't talk much the next morning. Kevin made coffee. I made toast. We passed each other in the kitchen like strangers with matching keys. He said thanks when I handed him the butter. I nodded, didn't smile, didn't need to. The silence wasn't angry, it was something else. Tender, tense, waiting. Around noon I went for a walk, just down the block, then through the park with the little pond we used to ride bikes around. The geese were loud, the sky was wide and empty, and everything smelled like sunburnt grass. I sat on the bench where I used to read as a teenager, same old initials carved into the wood, same scratchy bark behind it. I pulled out my phone, opened it, closed it, opened again. There was a text from a name I hadn't seen in weeks. Alex. Hey, just checking in, you okay? I stared at it for a while, then typed, yeah, I'm home. Then erased it, typed again, I'm still figuring it out. Still didn't send it. Put the phone in my pocket, closed my eyes, let the wind press against my cheek like something trying to ask a question. When I came back, the house was quiet, too quiet. His door was open. I found him lying on the rug in the living room, arms stretched out, eyes on the ceiling fan. He didn't look at me. Ever feel like your skin doesn't fit? He asked. I sat down beside him, cross-legged, close but not touching. Like if someone really saw what was underneath, they'd run, he continued. I didn't answer. Not right away. Then I reached over and placed my hand over his chest, just above his heartbeat. He tensed, held still. I left my hand there. His heart thumped against my palm, steady, scared, alive. I see it, I whispered. I'm not running. We stayed like that, still, breathing. My hand on his chest, his eyes closed. Then, quietly, he reached up and covered my hand with his. Fingers warm, slightly trembling. It wasn't romantic, or maybe it was, but not in the way movies show. More like, don't leave me yet. More like, this is the only place I feel like myself. That night we didn't sleep. We didn't talk either. He came into my room after midnight, sat on the floor back against my bed. I was already awake. I didn't ask why he was there. He didn't offer. The air was thick again, like a page waiting to be written on. His voice was barely audible. Do you think people can love wrong? I sat up. Wrong how? Like too much, too close, too quiet. I thought about that, then shook my head. I think the only wrong kind of love is the kind that's afraid to be seen. He didn't reply, but I felt the bed shift as he leaned back until his head touched my leg, and I let him stay there, resting, both of us not speaking, not sleeping, but together. At 3 a.m. he climbed into the bed. Didn't ask. He just did. We faced opposite directions, not touching, but the mattress was small, so our backs met, barely, and in that quiet, in that soft friction of breath and heat, something unspoken settled between us. Not shame, not clarity, something else. Longing maybe, or memory, or some strange shape of comfort. I didn't sleep again, but I didn't move, and when the first light crept into the room, I was still watching the wall, still listening to his breath, still wondering what we had become. The days got quieter, not empty, just delicate, like walking across glass, like knowing the wrong step might break something you'll never fix. We moved carefully, not avoiding each other, but aware, always aware. One evening, we cooked dinner together. Pasta, garlic bread, too much cheese. Kevin grated it too finely, I teased him. He smiled without showing teeth, and when I reached across him to grab the salt, his hand brushed my waist. Not hard, not long, but I felt it for minutes after, the kind of touch that lingers. He didn't say sorry, didn't explain, just looked down at the cheese and kept grating. We ate on the couch, the same spot as before. Plates balanced on our knees, music low in the background. Indie folk, something with soft harmonies and aching chords. At one point he asked, "What was it like when you left?" I took a breath, swallowed. "Loud," I said, and then too quiet. He nodded, didn't press, just took a bite of bread and kept chewing. Like he already understood more than he let on. After dinner, we watched something dumb on Netflix. A sitcom, laugh track too loud, but we sat close, closer than last time, his knee against mine, his arm resting along the back of the couch behind my shoulders. Not quite touching, but near enough. I leaned back, not because I had to, because I wanted to know if he'd move. He didn't, and then his fingers brushed my hair, just once. A small tangle he pushed back. casual, careless, except not. My breath caught, so did his. We both stared at the screen but weren't watching. Then it happened. The moment I still can't forget. The moment that split the timeline. He turned toward me. I felt it before I saw it. And then his hand reached up, touched my cheek. Soft, like a question. I didn't move, didn't lean in, didn't pull away. Just let it happen. Let him see me. Let him ask without words, "Is this okay?" And in my stillness I answered. But before anything else could happen, the front door opened. Fast, unexpected. "Hello." Mom's voice. Sharp, tired, too loud for the moment. We jumped apart, like kids caught stealing. Plates clattered. The remote dropped. I nearly knocked over the glass of water on the floor. Kevin stood up first, cleared his throat, moved fast toward the kitchen. I stayed frozen, pulse hammering in my neck. Mom walked in with grocery bags. "Hey, you two," she said, smiling, oblivious. We were out of milk again. I nodded, couldn't speak. Kevin didn't look back. That night we didn't talk. Not in the kitchen, not in our rooms, not in the hallway where our eyes used to meet in passing. He closed his door. I closed mine. But the space between them felt louder than any argument. I laid awake again, hands curled in the sheets, mind running in loops. Not about guilt, not exactly, but about the way the air shifted when his fingers touched my face, about the fact that nothing would ever feel the same again, not even silence. The next morning was cold, unseasonably cold. I wore a sweater I hadn't touched in months. Kevin made coffee without asking, poured me a cup without speaking. We didn't look at each other, but everything in the room still felt bruised. The kind of silence that follows almost. The kind that hums behind your teeth. I wanted to say something, I really did, but what would I even say? I didn't mean to. That would have been a lie. It didn't mean anything. Another one. "Are you okay?" Too small, too late. So instead I stared into my cup, let the steam blur my reflection. He left the house that afternoon, said he was going for a drive, didn't say where, didn't ask me to come. I watched him pull away from the window, his silhouette in the driver's seat, that stillness in his jaw when he's thinking too much. I waited for the sound of the car to fade, then sat on the stairs for a long time, doing nothing, thinking everything. When he came back, it was dark. He walked straight upstairs, didn't even look into the living room. I heard his door close, not slam, just shut, soft, final. At midnight I knocked, light once, no answer. Then again, this time he opened the door. He looked tired, like someone had wrung him out and left him to dry. "Can I sit?" I asked. He stepped back without a word. His room was the same as always. A little messy, too many books stacked near the bed, curtains half open, letting the moon cut across the floor. I sat on the edge of his bed. He sat on the floor, back against the wall, arms on his knees. We sat like that for minutes. The space between us felt weighted, as if it could tilt the house. "Did I mess everything up?" I finally asked. His head stayed down. "No," he said, but it didn't sound like relief. It sounded like grief. "I think about it all the time," he said quietly. I looked down at my hands. "What part?" He looked up at me, eyes darker than the room, the way your face looked when I touched you. I stopped breathing, because I remembered, exactly, the way his fingers felt, cool and gentle, the way something inside me reached back before I had time to stop it. "I wasn't afraid of the moment," he continued. "I was afraid of what it meant." I whispered, "And now?" He stood slowly, walked toward me, not fast, not hesitant either. When he stood in front of me, we were only inches apart. I could smell the pine from his hoodie, see the scar near his left eyebrow. He knelt down, so we were eye to eye. "I don't want to be afraid anymore," he said. I felt it then, the shift, the tipping. I reached out, just slightly. Ben touched his sleeve. He didn't flinch, didn't pull away. He placed his hand over mine, firm, intentional. We sat like that, in the dark, not kissing, not speaking, just breathing the same space, acknowledging something we still didn't know how to name. and for the first time in days I felt still. Not safe, not sure, but still. Later, as I turned to leave, he whispered, "Lyda." I stopped, waited, but he didn't say anything else. Just stood there, watching. And I knew we had stepped off the map. There was no more normal, no before to return to. Only this, whatever this was becoming. The next day we pretended, not very well. I asked if he wanted pancakes. He said sure. He washed dishes. I dried them. The rhythm was there, but not the music. Everything felt rehearsed, like we were reading from a script written by strangers. But I still caught him watching me, in the reflection of the microwave door, when I bent to tie my shoe, when I laughed, too loud, too suddenly, at nothing. His eyes always held a pause, like he was searching for the safe version of me and couldn't find her. Later that afternoon we sat on the porch. It had just rained. Everything smelled like wet leaves and metal. He brought out a blanket, offered to share. We sat close, knees pressed under the fabric. I didn't look at him, but I could feel him watching, a quiet heat under all the dampness. "I think I'm broken," he said softly. I turned to him. "You're not. You don't know that." "I do." I reached for his hand beneath the blanket, found it, cold, still. He let me hold it. "Sometimes," he whispered, "I think the only way I know how to feel is when I'm near you." I didn't breathe. The rain started again, soft, steady, a kind of cover. He turned his hand over, threading his fingers through mine. This time I didn't stop him. Didn't pretend we were just siblings sharing warmth. The door creaked open behind us. Footsteps. Mom. "Oh, I didn't know you were both out here." Kevin pulled his hand away so fast it stung. The blanket shifted, fell half off my lap. I looked up at her. She blinked, confused, paused, then forced a smile. "I just came to check if you wanted tea." Her eyes flicked between us. Too quickly. Something shifted in her face, but she said nothing. Kevin stood up. "I'm going to my room," he said, almost inaudible, and left. I stayed there. Let the rain hit my knees, didn't care. Mom lingered in the doorway. She didn't speak, but I could feel her staring. Not accusing, not yet, just uncertain. As if she knew something had changed, but didn't have the words for it. Neither did I. That night the house felt full of ghosts. Old versions of us, running down the stairs as kids, fighting over cereal, watching cartoons in our pajamas. Now all of it felt thin, like a memory playing too loud in a quiet room. Kevin didn't come out of his room. I knocked once. He didn't answer. I thought of going in anyway, but I didn't. I let the distance settle again, like dust, like guilt, like maybe that would keep us safe. At 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of the bathroom door. I got up, sleep heavy, barefoot on cold tile. The light was on. His reflection in the mirror was pale, wet, like he'd splashed water on his face and forgotten to dry it. He didn't see me at first. Then he did. He froze. We stared at each other through the mirror. Everything in me wanted to speak, to ask what he needed, to offer something clean. But I couldn't. He turned slowly and said, "I don't know what's wrong with me." I stepped forward. "You're not wrong," I said, and before I knew it, he was holding me. Tight, too tight, like something inside him had snapped, and I was the only thing keeping him from unraveling. His breath was shaky against my neck. "I don't know where to put this," he whispered. And neither did I. We stood there for a long time, wrapped in something that didn't feel like a mistake, but couldn't feel like safety either. I wanted to say, "It's okay," but it wasn't, not really. It was just real, and terrifying, and ours. The next day, he was gone. No note, no message, just gone. His bed was made, shoes missing from the rack. I waited until noon, paced the hallway, checked my phone. Nothing. And still I couldn't call Mom. Couldn't say Kevin left without choking on the weight of what we'd shared. He came back after sunset. I heard the door, soft but certain. Like someone who didn't want to wake the house. Just the memory of it. He didn't look surprised to see me sitting there, cross-legged on the living room rug, wrapped in the same blanket we shared on the porch. "I needed air," he said. I nodded. He walked past me, dropped his bag, stopped in the doorway. "You don't have to stay here for me," he added. His voice sounded flat, too steady, like he'd practiced it all day. I'm not here for you, I said. He flinched, then smiled, but not the real kind. I continued, I'm not here just for you. He waited. I'm here because I don't know who I am anymore, and somehow being near you makes that feel okay. He looked at me then, really looked, like he wasn't just seeing my face. He was searching for something inside it. I thought I was the one falling apart, he said. I stood up, slowly, crossed the room until we were face to face. You're not the only one. We stood there, feet almost touching, the air between us thick with everything unsaid. He looked like he wanted to reach for me, but didn't. So I did. I took his hand, held it in both of mine. Not for warmth, not for comfort, just to say, I'm here, still here, even now. What do we call this? He asked. I didn't answer, because a name would make it real, and real things break. Instead, I whispered, do we have to call it anything? He looked at the floor, then back at me. I don't want to lose you, he said. You won't. But even I wasn't sure that was true. That night he came to my room, knocked once, like always. I let him in. He sat on the floor by the bed, back to the wall. I stayed under the blanket, knees pulled up, watching the curve of his shoulders in the dark. He started talking, not about us, not about that night, about school, his friends, a girl who kissed him once last year and how he didn't feel a thing. I thought something was wrong with me, he said. It isn't, I told him. And I meant it, because I knew that same weight, the weight of trying to fit into something you never chose. He leaned his head back, closed his eyes. You were the first person I ever felt safe with. I reached down, touched his hair, just barely. His eyes fluttered open, looked up at me, and for a moment neither of us was afraid, not of what we were, not of what we'd done, only of how it could disappear. He stayed until I fell asleep. I don't remember drifting off, only the warmth near my legs, the silence breathing evenly beside the bed. When I woke, he was gone, but his hoodie was still on the floor, folded, neat, and somehow that felt louder than any goodbye. It was Mom. Of course it was. She came by in the afternoon. No warning. Just the sound of her key, the way the door always catches a little at the hinge. Kevin was still upstairs. I was in the kitchen. I heard her before I saw her. Lyda, she called. I stepped out, wiped my hands on a towel. She smiled, but her eyes were scanning. Not the room, me. I brought soup, she said. Thanks, I replied. There was a pause. Too long. Then she added, You've been quiet lately. I nodded, just adjusting. To what? Another pause. I looked at her. But not too long. To being back here, I guess. She didn't ask anything else, not yet. But I could feel it coming. That heaviness in the air right before lightning strikes. She stepped toward the stairs. Is Kevin home? I opened my mouth, closed it. Yeah, I said finally. He's upstairs. I'll say hi. Before I could stop her, she was already halfway up. I stood frozen, my fingers damp with dishwater, a drip from the towel landing on the floor like a clock ticking. They were upstairs for maybe 15 minutes. I didn't hear shouting, but I also didn't hear laughter. I imagined her sitting on the edge of his bed, him stiff in the desk chair, that silence he wears like armor. I imagined her asking something soft, and him looking away, not lying, just not knowing what truth would even sound like. When she came back down, her face was unreadable, but she didn't go straight to the kitchen. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs and looked at me, a long look, one that reached past skin, past excuses, past years. Is there something I should know? She asked quietly, not accusing, but close. I blinked once, shook my head. Not really. Lyda, the way she said my name, like she'd just found it cracked in her hand. I don't know what's going on between you two, she said, but something's changed. I didn't answer, because how could I? Because everything had changed. But there were no words soft enough to wrap it in, no language gentle enough to explain what even we didn't understand. He looks at you differently now, she continued. And you look at him like he's a cliff you're afraid to jump from but can't step away from either. I swallowed, hard. I'm not judging, she said finally. I'm trying to understand. That hurt more because it meant she'd seen too much, enough to need clarity, and there was none. That night I knocked on Kevin's door. He let me in but didn't turn from the window. She talked to me, he said. I nodded. She saw it. He didn't ask what she saw. He knew. So did I. We sat on the floor, backs to the bed. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy with things we could no longer pretend away. I think we should stop, he said, after a while. I turned to him. I don't know how. He closed his eyes. That's the problem. I reached for his hand, not to hold it, just to touch. He let me, but didn't move. We were okay, I whispered, when it was just us. Quiet. He nodded. But we don't live in quiet, not really. We stayed like that. No more words. Just the ache of almost. The shape of goodbye without saying it. And outside the window, the first leaves of fall began to turn. I woke before sunrise. The house was still. No footsteps, no doors creaking, only the low hum of something ending. Kevin's door was closed. Mine too. But it felt like the walls between us had thinned, like I could hear his breath even through plaster and gilt. I sat by the window, pulled my sweater tight, watched the sky change colors as if it was trying to figure out how to become morning again. I thought of everything we said, everything we didn't. Thought of how closeness sometimes becomes a language you can't translate back into distance. Around 7 he knocked, soft, like always. I opened the door. He had his backpack on, his hoodie sleeves pulled over his fists. I'm going to stay at Dad's for a while, he said. I nodded, didn't ask why, because I already knew. Not as punishment, not even as escape, just space, so we wouldn't collapse into each other again. I left something for you, he added, then turned, walked down the hallway, down the stairs. I didn't follow. I couldn't. I went back inside my room, sat on the bed, hands resting in my lap like I didn't know what they were for. Then I saw it, a small notebook, left neatly on my nightstand. No name, no decoration, just us. Pages filled with his handwriting, some neat, some hurried, fragments of things he couldn't say out loud. I don't think I love you the way I'm supposed to, one page read, but it feels more true than anything else has. I wanted to tell you I'm sorry, but I also wanted to tell you thank you. I don't regret the silence. I regret what I imagined inside it. I closed the notebook, pressed it to my chest, not to keep it safe, but to let it hurt. The good kind, the real kind. That afternoon I packed my things too. Not because I was running, not because of shame, just because the house had become too full of after. I left a note on the kitchen table. You can keep my plants. That was all. It felt like enough. Weeks passed, then months. He texted once. Are you okay? I replied. Getting there. You? Same. We didn't say more. Didn't need to. We had lived something unspeakable and beautiful and impossible in the same breath. And now we lived apart, not broken, just changed. Sometimes I dream of that porch. The rain, the blanket, the moment before the door opened, when we still believed we could carry it all and no one would see. But most days I wake up light, not free, but lighter, because we chose the truth, even if we couldn't keep it. And in that truth, somewhere between the ache and the echo, there was love, still is. The quiet kind that doesn't ask to be named, just remembered.